Hi everyone, welcome to today's live webinar. I'm just going to give it a few minutes for our attendees to join us. Welcome to the digital transformation and the future of manufacturing marketing. As we join, I'll just do a little bit of an introduction and housekeeping. I'm Nyla Bassett. I'm the EMEA Marketing Manager here at Acton. Warm welcome to all of you. Our attendees and our panelists, who we will introduce in a moment. A few housekeeping notes before we dive in. So the webinar is being recorded and we will send you a link to the recording after the event. There are some additional resources in the chat there. I think I have pasted that one in. I do recommend the Ultimate Guide for Manufacturing Marketing, so do have a look at that. Not many slides today. We are going to hear our panelists talk, but there are some useful notes for you to follow along with, and I can send you afterwards as well. Remember, there's a Q&A window as well to ask your questions. We do want the session to be as useful as possible. So do use that box and ask us questions. They are here to give you advice, and don't be shy. And if we can't cover them all, we'll definitely be in touch after the session to help you out. In addition to your questions, I'll also be pushing out a few polls during the webinar, which you will see on your screen. And the first one I will ask right now, given that our topic is digital transformation and the future of marketing, big topic. Our first question is, just going to launch the poll. What are the biggest challenges facing industrial and manufacturing marketeers today? Executing or transitioning to digital marketing activities, marketing techniques and strategy, demonstrating product value, and or creating content that's relevant, or none of these. Stay in the chat. So I'm going to let that run for a bit. If it's any of these, please do state in the chat, because we do have a look and comment. Definitely interested in hearing the responses. Like at Acton, we work with a lot of different manufacturing customers. We often hear, manufacturers, yeah, we're early adopters in our factories. We've got all the latest technologies in supply chain management and product development, but, keeping up with the digital trends of the buyer cycle is a constant challenge for our marketing department. So I'd love to find out to what extent this is true. And I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results so our panelists can also see. So Matt, welcome to you, Matt. Starting with you, it'd be great if you could introduce yourself, your background. You can see the results in the poll, so maybe a commentary on that. But having a look at the poll results, what do you see, excuse me, as the greatest challenge facing industrial and manufacturing marketers today?
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, thank you, Nyla. So I'm Matt Chilton, founder of Zanute. We run the zanute.com website, which majors on positivity in British manufacturing in all its wide and varied forms. We share news, case studies, but we also advise partners on content and engagement within the sector, content ideas, content consultancy, and so on. For me, the conversations that I have, the biggest challenges are creating content and finding subject matter experts for it, which is kind of what we do, but also what content works best. And I think that's, for me, what I see, I guess, as the big questions that are incoming to us all of the time. Regarding the poll, I think there's a bit of crossover, so I'm not surprised to see a bit of a variety of answers there, but there's a bit of crossover with all of them. I think sometimes, well, they all have an impact on one another, I guess, and I always think, let's focus on quality content. Let's have that as the first, part of it. So I hope to bring a bit of value to the audience today. Talking about when you've got that great content and you've focused on quality, you've got it. What do you do with it? What intelligence can you get from how it's working, the impact it's having, to ultimately make better decisions in the future? And I think that's the connection with marketing automation, using technology that's available to people today.
Great, thanks, Matt, for the intro, and welcome to you, Jason. If you could intro yourself, maybe comment on the poll. Interesting to know that the top two are creating content that's relevant, 45%, and 36% are executing or transitioning to digital marketing activities. So just your view on that poll, and what do you see at Sharp Europe? What do you see as the greatest challenging facing your marketers today, and yourself, I guess?
Yeah, sure, Naila. Thanks for inviting me to participate in this as well. And yeah, Jason Cort, Director of Product Planning and Marketing for Sharp's B2B, so that B2B technologies and services across our European business, selling to both commercial organisations and public and non-profit making organisations. So it was really interesting to see this actually, because in terms of the results, probably similar to the discussions that we had in preparing for this particular session, and certainly, content is absolutely one of the toughest challenges that we all face, and it's no different at Sharp actually. I like to think we know our products pretty well, and that we understand the value that they can bring, but it's how we communicate that value through the digital media, and of course content is the way in which we do that. And then again, interestingly, executing or transitioning to digital marketing activities. It's how do we communicate that content, that whether by attracting people or by outreaching to people, but we've got to have the right content to make it relevant and for people to act on that. And then how do we kind of use that as we move through the marketing to sales funnel, again using content to actually do that. But it's about how you need to adapt the content or have different content depending on what stage you're at in that process. And again, it's having the marketing tools and activities to enable that at each different stage. And quite frankly, we face exactly the same challenges. And I think also, again, digital constantly evolves. So sometimes it's very hard to kind of keep up with the latest shiny tool or the latest Google Analytics algorithms and things like that.
Great. I'll stop sharing that. Yeah. So a lot of kind of ideas introduced there. I think, yep, the content bit is really hard. The combination of getting the right content, fully executing on your digital strategy. And I'm not sure what the challenges are specifically in that, whether it's utilizing your tools, whether it's CRM or website, or combining it with marketing automation. So I'm not surprised to see that. To both of you actually. So when we were doing the research on this, I think we found a stat that said only 30% of manufacturers are using marketing automation. Like, is that fair to say that this sector is, they've been the slowest to adopt marketing innovation? Like, is this fair to say, Matt, or is this just so untrue that this is something that you've not seen at all?
No, I agree. From the conversations that we have, yes. And I think let's look at a comparison of manufacturers in the factory, on the factory floor, using technology to harvest data, make better decisions. And you compare that to marketers and marketing departments, you'd say yes. Now, I'm not saying that marketers are lazy. I sometimes question whether they're being supported well enough by their business, as in lack of investment in marketing technology, marketing automation, digitizing, whatever. I think the appetite's there. The conversations that we have around content writing, yes, very, very important, but it's the executing the content, as in what are you going to do with it, getting the awareness, the attention from potential buyers. So I do think we're fair in what we say. And, I know that Acton Research was saying 30% of manufacturers are using marketing automation. My question would be, what are the 70% doing?
Yeah. What are they doing?
Is there a risk of being left behind because a direct competitor's doing it, something like that? So my thought process, and as we were discussing things to talk about today, is we're just about to hit Q4 of 2022. What are people doing in 2023 with marketing automation, where you could digitize marketing, or at least digitize as best you can? And I think maybe we talk a little bit later on the step-by-step process, that it's not just all at the same point. And maybe we look back at lean, and to a point, digital transformation in factories. It's always a journey. It's never all at once. It never has been all at once. It's always been sort of start the journey, focus, and continue. But I would, challenge to say, how can marketing automation form part of what you are doing in 2023? And as we're hitting Q4, think about that.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that, and I think we're constantly being challenged. I think whether you're in a small business or a large business to do more with less, it's a bit cliche, but actually it is the reality. And we've just come through a pandemic, which was pretty tough and challenged in many ways to do that and to work differently. And unfortunately, we now have a new challenge that we're facing with the economic crisis and things like that, which, and particularly in the UK now, the way the pound is heading, that's going to put a lot of pressure on all businesses, and probably particularly manufacturing. So that, how do I do more with less, or how do I do more with what I've got, becomes even more challenging. But I think also more important as well, that you actually are out there marketing yourself. You've got the visibility so that you can win that business, because it becomes more precious to us. And I think, again, when you, as Matt was talking about, as companies digitize their manufacturing processes and automate their manufacturing processes, I'm sure at each stage in that manufacturing process, there are different applications that are being used to do that automation. And marketing is no different. Because I can imagine questions sometimes, well, you've got your website, oh, you want a CRM now, do you? Right, okay, there you go. Oh, you want a marketing automation? Right, you want some analytics tools? Where's this going to end? But it's no different to that production line, and they're just different stages in that life cycle management, ultimately to generate those marketing qualified leads and sales qualified leads.
Yeah, no, some really great points there. And so we've got a little slide on some of the challenges that we've summarized. When you're thinking about kind of Q4 and 2023 kind of onwards, and you're thinking about, right, so I've got these challenges, what do I need to do to grow? And one of the things that I kind of wanted to kind of hone in on was this idea of the content piece. Again, I know our poll showed that that's a challenge. Like, when we looked at this collectively, we found that producing that high quality content is one of the greatest challenges for those in this space. And I just wondered, why is that? Why is this still a challenge? I think it's across sectors as well, so not just in manufacturing. So coming to you, Matt, creating content is hard, and you mentioned it very early on as it being a really important thing. So what steps do I need to take to get this kind of successful content marketing program flowing? What do I need to do? Why is it so difficult? Can you give us some advice on getting that right?
Of course. I think a content audit is probably the place to start. Challenge yourself with what you have. Where are the gaps? What is working well? What is not working well? If it's not working well, get rid of it. Don't worry about it anymore. But also, which piece of content is working best at which part of the buyer journey? I will always say that customer stories should be the #1 priority. A story or a case study on that partnership with the client, customer, partner, whatever you call them. Don't be afraid to ask customers for case studies. That's sometimes one of the big hang-ups that I have. Most people will at least be open to the discussion. We've had scenarios where you've got 2 engineers talking to one another and they go, oh, marketing, no, that's nothing to do with us. It's easier just to say no. When actually, if you engage with the right person at your client or your customer to actually talk through that process of, this isn't a piece of marketing. This is more about sharing a story of how you have become a better business. You're more productive, you've improved quality, you're more sustainable, whatever the touch points are. But you're actually talking to your customer. You're not just saying, we want to write a case study, and they automatically think, oh no, crumbs, that's going to give away some sort of secret or whatever it may well be. I don't find that that's the case most of the time. Of course, you're going to get the odd occasion where that's not possible, an NDA and so on. But overall, shouldn't be seen as a huge challenge. Ask and talk to people. I also think that people miss internal knowledge. Talk to your sales team. What themes have they seen emerge in the recent past? What themes do they continually come across when they're pitching? They will have knowledge to share, and ask them about what are they talking to clients during that process? What challenges are they being thrown at? And you may well come up with a golden nugget idea for a piece of content, whether it be a blog, a piece of insight, a piece of thought leadership for one of your senior team, and so on. But also put yourself in the shoes of your targets, your prospects, your suspects, or however you define them, and how are you solving their challenges, and then match your content with your USPs to the challenges that the industry or the subsector is facing, whatever, you know, customer you have, whether it be in manufacturing itself or outside of the sector. Answer the questions to these challenges and create content that matches what you're doing and the challenges that you're solving for your clients. We were talking when we were preparing for this, and I was saying sometimes it's a bit lazy to talk of it in this way, but we kind of say to our partners, as long as it's interesting and it's educational, you can't go too wrong. The reader, the potential buyer, will remember where they learned something from. You know, share that insight, that knowledge that you guys have, and whether it's on social, whether it's on an email nurture campaign, and so on, people will remember that you educated them on something that made an impact, and that obviously just keeps that sort of momentum going to nurturing and building relationships. And I think finally, provide value by not cutting corners. I think it's very, very easy to cut corners when it comes to content, and maybe we'll talk a little bit later on the quality versus quantity piece. And it's so important that it's quality content. You sometimes only have one opportunity to engage with someone and make a real impact at the very beginning, to go, wow, these guys know what they're talking about. We need to engage with them, or I'm actually going to read a bit more content. And it's sort of, you're slowly building that momentum with everything. So I know there's a lot there to think about, but major on the quality, that's the big thing for me.
And Matt, I'm going to ask this question because you're talking about it right now, but Thomas wants to know, what should valuable content cost?
Oh, Thomas, that is a question. I think you should focus more on a subject matter expert. This isn't a sales pitch from me by any stretch, but when we write content for our partners, we are nowhere near the cheapest, because they're not paying for us just to write 500 words or 1,000 words. They're paying for, you know, combined 50 plus years of knowledge and experience in manufacturing. As in, I talk to manufacturers every single day of the week about their factories. So obviously we have some insight to share with our partners when we're creating a case study. What do people actually want to read about, and so on. So I think it's a little bit about finding the right partner, but also investing in, you know, we can all go on to Fiverr and these other sort of, you know, really sort of cheap options to create content. I think what I would say is put yourself into the shoes of your clients, your targets, and would you be educating them with a quality piece of content? But, you know, we're talking 4 or 5 figure sums of money for a program of content potentially, you know, because I think we might touch on this later, but just to sort of cover it now, very, very quickly, I don't think people make instant decisions when they read a case study. They don't make an instant decision, okay, I'm now going to buy this product or this service or this solution immediately just because they've read one piece of content. I think it's all part of a journey. So I think you need to look at that buyer journey and actually, you know, which piece of content fits best. We'll cover that a little bit later on this webinar, but I think it's more about finding the right partner and obviously what they're going to charge you for what you want, and don't be sort of, I guess, forced into, we've got to do 5 or 6 blogs when actually you should be writing 2 really strong customer stories. Or we've got our management team who've got some really interesting insight, so we're going to write 3 insight articles and 1 case study, rather than create a load of content for email, say, or video. You know, would you get your message across better on video? Now, obviously, having a film crew coming out to film something is going to be a lot more expensive than written content. But actually, over the longer term, would you get more value from that because you've invested in video rather than written? You know, it's a tough question to answer without, I guess, knowing a little bit more about what you're trying to push and, you know, sort of what works best for you. I sort of throw that back as well. You know, what have you seen work best in the past, and can you then sort of budget for your 2023, you know, numbers and work it out from there?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add to that in terms of that selection criteria. And, you know, clearly Matt's got vast experience, you know, with his business in manufacturing. So I would almost say that's a fast route to getting somebody who can help you very quickly, you know, with developing that content. You know, certainly the approach that we've taken here is that once we have an agency that we feel we have build a good relationship with, actually we tend to run that relationship for years, so that actually they can get to understand us, our business, our culture, our customers. So they develop that over time, and it's a longer play. But what they also bring to the party then is that broader view, not just on our industry, but other industries and things like that, which can help, and the type of resources that they have. But it just takes some time to build that relationship. But I think, we've seen the benefit of that. So we tend not to chop and change generally with agencies, that's for sure. And I think, again, video is an interesting one, actually, because I again completely agree. Video really important, and certainly from a lot of the work that we do, video tends to give us much better responses, especially on social media as well, whether it's clicks and shares and things like that. But you can spend a fortune on video. But I think you have to remember, particularly in this day and age, people aren't always expecting, studio quality video when they're seeing something on social media that you're probably going to watch for 10 seconds. Or 20 seconds. So again, I would say it's that experiment and learn, but don't be afraid to use your iPhone and things like that, and have a go at creating some simple video, and then see what sort of response you get. So again, we try and mix and match, and in some of our subsidiaries, we have people doing it with their iPhones for a certain type of content. Yeah. And of course, there's other content where we do need the studio production, but not all of it.
Yeah, agreed. We had a conversation with one of our clients recently about having their customers just film their products installed in a factory on their iPhone, and just ask an engineer to get the phone out, and he or she can just take a 10 or 15 second burst of their product on a production line, whether it be a car factory, a food factory, a pharmaceutical business, and so on. And actually you can just sew that together relatively cheaply, and find someone who's really cool at video editing, and actually you've got a really nice little LinkedIn video or social media video of our products working, making these factories more productive. And that's the complete opposite end of the spectrum of having a professional team, as Jason says, going in, poles apart from an investment perspective.
Yeah, and video is just so much more engaging. I think it's a valid conversation to say we all need to produce better content that's aligned with the buyer journey and ICP and the rest of it, but there's just so much of it. I think it's just too difficult for our prospects to consume, and us expecting them to consume a blog in the same way, or like an ebook in the same way. I don't think it's reasonable, and video is just way more engaging. So I like the idea of incorporating video, and it kind of ties nicely into something, Jason, you spoke about that you're doing at Sharp, which is instead of doing these kind of big campaigns that start and end, you're being a bit more agile in your kind of content-based marketing approach. That video approach seems to sit really nicely in that. Like, how does that work then? I mean, could you talk us through that?
Yeah, sure. So, historically, we've adopted the large campaign waterfall approach, where you spend a lot of money, and it's the campaign for the quarter or for the 6 months, for example. So you spent a lot of time developing it, and then you have to activate it across your countries, and that can take a period of time as well. And you actually have to be careful that sometimes you don't kind of miss the boat on the opportunity that you saw in the market, or that you were anticipating. Whereas content-based marketing, as you say, it's far more agile, because actually it's about smaller pieces of content that you can develop very rapidly, but which are part of an overall story that you want to communicate to the market, which might be about one product or a whole series of products. So an example, I would have, in fact, 2 examples would either be security for our products. So how do we help our customers to, secure their businesses with the technology that they're using? Whether that's laptops or MFP, multifunction printers, or displays and things like that. It all needs protecting. So what is the approach to security? What do you need to think about? It's a huge subject that you can talk about in many different ways, but you don't have to do it in one big campaign. You can actually do it over a period of 6 months, 12 months or longer, because it never ends, actually. And I guess that's why security is probably a good business to go in, because the hacker's already got a new way of penetrating your system. So you need to update your security again. Sustainability, another great example that works really well from a content point of view, because there's many different ways of talking about sustainability at a product level, at a company level, at an issue level for the industry and things like that, but very relevant to everybody. So you can be very agile and you can flip between those subjects in terms of your marketing calendar quite easily. And also, if you find that something that's resonating well and it's getting good coverage, you can focus on that very quickly and build out a bit more around that subject, because you haven't put all your money in that one big marketing campaign, for example. So it's great. And again, to your point, you can try different media, whether it's video, whether it's animations, for example. Case studies. It's really mix and match on your content.
Yeah, I really like that approach. I like the idea that execution is faster, that you're just way more agile. You can produce lots of pieces of content. It's just a bit more manageable. And I think,
exactly.
As a B2B marketer, I struggle with the producing. I always feel like it's got to be a big thing. I've got to produce a big piece of content, and it's got to be part of this big campaign that's aligned to the buyer journey. And I think we all know what we need to do, but we maybe make the job too big. I agree. There's time and effort. We should be understanding the buyer persona, their pain points, but really kind of resonate with what Matt said about, your core is to solve the problem for your buyer. And I think that's the bit that we all struggle with, is how do you get that solve versus sell? So having a good understanding of what you're looking to achieve with your content marketing efforts and how that's going to fit in with your campaigns is really, really important. And if that isn't in place, you couldn't automate. You would need that as a foundation to automate. So okay, great. That was brilliant. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the next poll. So I'm going to launch poll 2. This is just a general kind of, we've thought about the time and the energy and the money creating the content. So, now it's really about how we get attention to that content. And when we also researched doing this webinar, we looked at some of the other challenges, and I think transition to digital marketing activities was a top challenge. Getting the right audience, measuring success and ROI, all of that is still kind of rated as okay. We're struggling with this. So and what channels you use is very dependent on how big your company is, what your approach is for local, regional, national business. So before we dig in, I thought it'd be cool to have a look at poll 2, and I can see everybody's kind of completing that. I'm going to end the poll, and then I'm going to share the results. So Matt, I'm hoping you've had a chance to have a look at that. So what's the videos? 92%. Interesting, because we just talked about that.
Yeah.
Were you expecting more of an even mix, or is this to be expected in your experience?
I was expecting a fairly even mix. I'm very pleased to see videos there.
Yeah, me too.
And I guess podcasts down at only 25%, maybe not surprising. It's a lot of time, work and effort, and if we're talking about marketing teams being under pressure to deliver leads and work on everything that they've got to work on, a podcast is an awful lot of work to prep for, get great people to speak on, obviously post-production and so on. So I kind of understand that. A little surprised on ebooks. Might see ebooks and maybe white papers and reports if you combine that all together. I know obviously you just can't have a great long list of absolutely everything, but unsurprised that there's a fair even mix of those. Pleased to see video, and I think we'll probably see more of that. I think most of us will agree, the deeper you go into the buyer journey, or the buyer goes into the journey, the longer that they will be prepared to consume content. I think at all stages it's about being visible, building momentum. And Nyla, just before the poll, what you were saying, none of us can predict the right time to engage with a prospect. If we could, it would be brilliant. We'd all be very rich, and never mind a 4-day week, we'd all be working a 1-day week, because we'd know exactly when to hit people and it would be brilliant. We can't, so we kind of got to hedge our bets a little bit. So I think it's that visibility and building that momentum with every single piece of content, even if it is just something that sales teams share on LinkedIn, right the way up to a big report, a sector report, a white paper on a specific subject, or an ebook, something to that extreme, and everything in between. I think the differences that you're making with existing customers, I think is a priority, and whether you're doing that with video or any of that list of content opportunities. I think manufacturing execution system software is a great example, because it tends to produce really strong stories of how a manufacturing business is more productive, is improving quality, being more sustainable, and so on. It's all evidence-based because you've had the software installed, everyone's using it, the management team are making better strategic decisions to improve the business, and it's all evidence-based. And the challenge for that would be when the reader sees that, they think, well, what would happen if we did that, or we use this software? And it goes back to that USPs versus challenges piece. And I think everyone in manufacturing wants to improve, and certainly in other industries that those of you who are joining us today are serving with your product services solutions. Everyone wants to improve, but I think with the MES software example, if you didn't have a fit for purpose MES software, you would think, okay, wow, what happens to us if we use this technology? So I think it's back to saying, yeah, look, tell a strong story with strong content, but I think it's about nurturing at every stage that you possibly can, feeding good content as regularly as you possibly can. And that doesn't mean you've got to produce a case study every week. It doesn't mean that at all. It's about where you have these great ideas from salespeople, from management teams. Maybe it's just a LinkedIn Pulse article that the whole company shares. Maybe it's a big case study. Maybe you produce a report once a year on your sort of, your niche, your subsector that you're sort of targeting and focused on. There was a really interesting piece of research before the pandemic, so it wasn't affected by coronavirus, which said, on average, the average B2B buyer consumes 13 pieces of content before making a buying decision. And I think I would agree in principle. Sometimes it's going to be 3 or 4, other times it's probably going to be more than 13. But overall, I think that's a fair sort of analysis to say that it's 13 pieces. At every part of those 13 pieces, though, and I think this is the problem, what is working best and when? And I think coming back to marketing automation, you're able to make better decisions with better intelligence and better data to make you better at what you're doing from an execution of the content perspective. So if you had 3 blogs, an email campaign, 2 case studies, a video, a report, and a gated ebook, that's your sort of journey. Well, how do you know what works best with each piece of content and how it nurtures the next? And it could be an email campaign where you've got a series of 4 or 5, 6 emails, and each one is actually telling a bit more of the story and nurturing someone along that. So you can see when people are opening it, how if they're going to the website, how long they're reading the content, and so on. So I think there's lots of different moving parts of how, I guess, marketing automation and the digital piece of this gives you better insight, intelligence, and data to make better decisions. And just what I was saying about LinkedIn Pulse article and everyone sharing it, I think it's important that it's not just marketing sharing from their LinkedIn company page. The business has to make sure that everybody, especially the sales team, but also senior management, because inevitably they'll probably have a decent following on LinkedIn. Hopefully they're active on other social channels as well. But everyone is sharing this. It's down to everyone to sort of push the message. And I hope that means that people will make more sensible decisions with marketing automation, as in they will be more sensible in how they nurture different prospects with different types of content. So that's probably my piece on that.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I definitely agree with kind of the advocacy piece. Share beyond just the marketing team. We've all got different networks. It just amplifies the content so much faster if you're all doing it. In terms of automation, yeah, I think it just gives you the ability to test lots of things as well. Like, I don't think you need to automate huge amounts either to start off with. A few different pieces of content in a sequence. You can A/B test the content, the call to action, even the position of where the content sits. So I think one of the things we spoke about, Matt, was Oh, it was, I think I was asking you, where do I put a case study? Like, do I put it in the middle of a nurture program, or is it at the top? Like, where does it go? And you were like, well, it depends. And I think that's the insight that you would get from if you started automating. Once you've done it, you get the results, you can have a look at what's working, and it gives you the ability to change it around, that the strong analytics piece of it, to build strong automations.
And that's the power and the beauty of digital as well, isn't it? That
Yeah.
you not only are you agile, but actually you can experiment, and you can, you know, adapt extremely quickly, you know, minute to minute, even if you really wanted to. But that's just the point of how flexible digital is. And you know, if you don't experiment, you know, you're constraining yourself actually, and you're probably then going to miss some of those gems of what combination works or what keywords work in a particular campaign that you have, and things like keyword research are really important. So yeah, certainly don't be afraid to experiment with these things as well. And you're absolutely right. The marketing automation then is the ability to, as part of that experimentation, see the results quickly, and then try again, see the results quickly, reevaluate, and so forth. It's your orchestration capability between all of those different media and platforms.
Yeah, and so many good points there about choosing the right channels, where the content goes with the buyer journey, and then looking at,
Yeah.
you know, the ROI. One of the things one of the things that I would just reiterate is, once you started thinking about all those things, it's okay just to start on a small bit. Like, do not be afraid to say, right, I'm going to automate this bit, or try this persona and optimize that. And it's okay to start small, and I'm going to test this journey because it's optimized, and then I'm going to make it better. I think it's then much easier to kind of scale your efforts, because I think there's definitely an adoption wherever you are on the kind of adoption scale of automation, and your content creation. There's room for improvement. So whether you're, you know, in the middle or the beginning. So I would just, yeah, I'd reiterate that. And I guess I'm still surprised that, considering how amazing manufacturers are investing in that automation in their kind of their production lines, their factories, it's the same energy is not given to the marketing engine that would probably feed those lines with new orders. So
I think so much more affordable as well. You know, the technology, you know, whether it's your website or your CRM or your marketing automation, you know, compared to 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, the power that you have at your fingertips for relatively low cost as well is quite incredible, really. So again, make the investment, make the effort. And the other thing I'd just pick on was what Matt mentioned actually, which was about LinkedIn and using your people, your salespeople, your management teams, you know, your engineers, doesn't matter, but get them to engage on LinkedIn as well. And we've had a big effort in Sharp, you know, across Europe to encourage our people, you know, from our HR departments and things like that, again, to use LinkedIn, you know, share content, click on content that we're publishing as Sharp, but also to contribute as well. You know, it needs to be done in the right way. But you know, we've had successes with things like mental health pieces about what we're doing, because again, very important, very topical. But it also helps to describe what type of company you are as well. Because it's not just about your product, yeah, that's a big part, but it's also about the type of company you are, and the other businesses may or may not want to deal with you.
Yeah, I mean, people want to do business with good people, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly. So you've got to put that out there as well. Yeah, fantastic product and great people. Yeah.
And I'll probably put money that someone present today in the audience in marketing has been contacted by HR to help with recruitment, and can we get the message out there of what a fantastic business we are.
Sure.
And I think we've seen that more, where talent acquisition is not marketing's responsibility, but marketing are helping, the comms, the PR team, the marketing team are actually helping that effort with what are we doing? Yeah, we're investing £5 million in an extension, or we bought a brand new piece of technology, a new CNC machine tool, whatever it may well be, we've got some automation in the factory, whatever it is. But actually it's about the message of, you know, we care about our staff. And, you know, I get to talk to some manufacturers where you kind of, it doesn't take you very long to think, okay, wow, the culture at this business is off the scale, really, really good, engaged members of staff, everyone's pushing in the same direction. And it's, you know, obviously down to great leadership and so on. But actually the marketing team are doing more than just the MQLs, the SQLs, and actually the awareness demand gen. They're, you know, championing the business as well, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of, it's the softer side, but it's building awareness, it's building perception, hopefully, you know, credibility, which ultimately can all help towards that MQL that you get, because it's influenced, you know, those decisions, and it's spread the awareness of your business as well, actually.
Agreed.
Yeah. No, I love that, and I'm definitely drawn to companies that have really strong culture, because that normally bleeds through the stuff they're doing on social. Like, that's more attractive to me than their actual proposition. And I'm far more, I won't name any brands, but that's far more compelling to me to go, oh, actually, you look quite cool as a business. I can see that you value diversity and inclusion, for example. What else, what is it that you do? So I definitely don't think that can be underestimated. It's really, 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 really important. So interesting that you both mentioned that as well. Before we move on to, thank you so much for those. That was brilliant. I just wanted to maybe launch our final poll of the day, thinking about the future. So we've spoken about a lot about the challenges, about what we need to do for content. I'm really interested to hear from the audience. So the question is, what will be the biggest trend in manufacturing marketing in the next few years? And we've got marketing automation, social media, lots of other channels, video content, SEO, email. If you do say other, let us know in the Q&A. Do let us know, because I've had a few of those and I'm looking for an answer. So I'm really interested to know. So while that's running, we can have a think about what our responses would be. So Matt, did you want me to let it run, or do you want to guess?
I hope after this webinar it's going to be marketing automation. So let's hope people are kind to us. Or maybe content as well, I hope. But
a combination, probably.
Yeah, a combo of all. But yeah, look, wouldn't it be great if it was marketing automation, you know, sort of racing ahead? But I think it's a fantastic opportunity for us to see actually what are the challenges that people are facing, what do they want to major on next year.
I've shared it. It won't be mean. I've just shared it. It is 46.
Going back to digital transformation. And I guess digital transformation in the factory, everyone is starting at a different place. And, you know, we talk a lot in marketing about overarching trends and what should we focus on. I think the reality is, look at the buyer profile, look at the buyer persona, look at what content you have, where you have gaps, what content has worked well, what content has not worked well. You know, let's learn, as you were saying, test, try things and so on. Don't be afraid of trying something new, as Jason said earlier, but also as we enter Q4, going back to that, you know, something next year that you didn't do this year. What did you enjoy yourself that you could maybe copy? Did you join a webinar, maybe not this one, another webinar? Did you read an ebook? Did you engage with a piece of gated content where you were prepared to give your data to access that content? Why not try something like that? See what works best for you, evaluate, talk to your customers. What do they want from you? You know, I think sometimes that's a really missed opportunity that, and I know the sales team might be precious with the client and so on, but actually I think marketing could learn, you know, if you have a customer service role, why not, you know, incorporate that marketing role as well? And what do they want? Case studies will always be my favorite. If anyone ever says to me, Matt, here's my budget, what should I focus on? I would always choose case studies from the beginning. I think manufacturers and manufacturing as an industry likes learning from its peer group. It likes to be educated on what someone else has done that they could do themselves. And I guess I'm biased toward case studies because I continually see them being well received, having good read times, That's not to say, though, that a really, high quality email nurture campaign is not just as valuable. It absolutely is. 4, 5, 6 pieces of really strong content to sort of build that momentum and get that sort of awareness attention piece before you go in for the conversion or the salesperson follows up and, challenges that, I guess, buyer to, okay, what did you think of that content? How can I answer any further questions that you've got? And do you want to do what we've been feeding you in this email campaign? It's all important. But, what about a podcast? What about more video content? What about a video case study? Obviously, video did particularly well earlier on in the previous poll. What about a how-to guide? It's one of those sort of open-ended questions, I think, a little bit, but I think there's just so many opportunities, but ultimately, what do customers want, or targets, prospects want? Match your knowledge and experience. There's an appetite to be informed and inspired in the industry at the moment. Despite everything that's going on with energy prices and economic challenges, supply chain challenges, we continually see business in general to be optimistic over the long term, despite these short-term challenges that we're all seeing. I encourage you to jump on that optimism and tell the story of what you've done and how you can do it for others.
Yeah, just to maybe build on that, from our experience as well, just generally, there will be other businesses in your industry that are clearly not competitors, but complementary to your activities, that they themselves may have a strong brand recognition or presence in a particular segment, etc. But look out for those businesses and investigate partner marketing with those organizations as well, because again, that synergy, that partnership message can only add value to your brand, and hopefully vice versa as well. That's why you're doing that co-marketing. You can reach a greater number of customers, and you can create some new stories that way as well. So that's certainly something that we always look out for. Completely agree with the case studies, most valuable, because that's a customer endorsement, isn't it? It's not a video about a product or an ebook about your products and things like that. That's a customer saying, we endorse the products from this company, so much so that we're prepared to go out there, and that's just why they're so powerful. And maybe also harder to get, for sure. But I think, the marketing automation, top of the list. And as part of that, and we've touched on it a bit, but also the analytics is really important. And I think, we've touched on analytics a number of times throughout this, because you have to be able to assess how well it is that content working for you, whatever that content is, or that particular media, for example. But it's the analytics that will allow you to do that and give you the insight, again, to improve your marketing campaigns, but even improve your products as well. Actually, what are customers really interested in? And again, the data can tell you that, which might influence your next product, for example. And again, those tools are getting more sophisticated, the costs have fallen, and it's really important. You just need to be curious, to look at the data and get the insights.
And I think also is something I saw on LinkedIn a while back, and it made me think, and I've got it, I've prepared it for this session. I'm just going to read it word for word, as it's from LinkedIn Marketing Solutions and their team sort of pushing out some efforts I think that LinkedIn were having. And it says, stories are powerful. Humans are hardwired to invest in the narrative, empathize with the characters, and anticipate the story's outcome. If you can tell your potential customers an honest, relatable story about your value proposition, you'll be far more memorable than brands that rely solely on features and benefits. And I think that's a brilliant summary of what a story should be, but also an opportunity for us to reflect on what that should be. And, I guess instead of listing what you do, it's the so what question, from an audience or buyer perception, as what impact are you having within the manufacturing sector or outside of the manufacturing sector, what impacts your product, services, solutions are having, and so on. But also, I think, it's about telling the story of how you're helping your clients, customers, partners be better prepared for the future. And I think future proofing is a really interesting subject of, how you're protecting, I guess, almost your clients from future headwinds or future challenges that they may have because they're early adopters of a technology or whatever it may be that you're supporting them with. But I think that's a wonderful way to get your story across in sort of, that sort of how have we benefited that client, and actually sort of make that real connection with buyers during that buyer journey, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Actually, when I saw this part, obviously I was hoping for marketing automation, but something a bit, and going back to the first poll when we looked at, it's either transitioning or executing or digital activities. I think marketing automation is part of that mix. And I think what we're seeing is kind of potentially, because we see it in other industries as well, this kind of ineffective management of your tech stack. So if you may have an automation platform, but you're not fully utilizing it. So it's just having a bit of control of that. And I think once you've understood where you are, so if you're not using it enough, let's start using it. If we're already using it, how we can get better. That means, immediately your sales and marketing relationship improves. You'll start thinking about tracking and reporting. I think all of that has a knock-on effect. So yeah, I think it's a trend, but I think we are going to be thinking about the implications of our own tech and how we're using it. And how does that work with everything else that we've got? And we spoke extensively about other things like CRM and website and analytics and all those things. We've got all those things. Are we using them effectively? Are we underutilizing them? So I think that's a really, really important part of the conversation. I want to give time for Q&A. So what I'll do is I'll move on to the kind of key takeaways for today. So Matt, just to help us wrap up the session before the Q&A section, if you were to share some top tips for today's viewers, what would they be?
Yeah, okay, so just as I guess set the scene, I believe content consumption is at an all-time high, as Jason said earlier, and what he was saying about it's a busy place. That's good and bad. It means that people are there wanting to digest your content, but you're competing. So first and foremost, always major on quality. It's very noisy out there, certainly on social and in email inboxes. So focus on the quality of the content you produce. Get help where you need it from people like us that produce content or know the industry and can give you insight into conversations, for example, that we're having with manufacturers, obviously in our case, but your partner, if you work in the finance industry, the retail industry, wherever you're selling your products to. Second, conduct that content audit, fill the gaps, find out what works, engage with your salespeople, your management team if appropriate, and your customers, and try to work out as best you can which bits work better at which parts of the buyer journey and what sits where. Try, test, as we've all said. That's the way to sort of get that sort of, I guess, defined feedback. And finally, as your colleagues in the factory are, with productivity improvement and embracing technology to enable that, look at ways next year that you can automate elements of your marketing. You as marketers are more valuable to yourselves and to the business you work for, working on a strategic focus rather than delivering elements that could be potentially automated. So if you can automate it, please consider doing it. Free up your time to be more productive on the strategy and sort of the overarching, I guess, sort of long-term approach rather than the day-to-day stuff that could potentially be automated. And let's go back to the question at the beginning about digital transformation. Colleagues at the factory or in the factory are using technology to help them be more productive. You should be doing the same with marketing in 2023, in my opinion. And I encourage you during your Q4 planning this year, how can you embrace some technology in marketing to be more productive next year? Those would be my focus points for people to consider and think about in the coming weeks and months.
Great, and over to you, Jason, for your top tips as well.
Gosh, that was quite all encompassing, really, wasn't it?
You haven't got any left. I'm only joking.
No. I mean, one of the things is a fantastic list of things to do and consider. But the important thing is that you do something on this, and so there's a pun there, really act on that. Yeah, don't hesitate. Absolutely, automation really important. And in acting, experiment, try. And we said it before, don't be afraid to fail, but learn quickly, and then adapt quickly as well. Yeah, the content, as we said right at the beginning, really important, and it is absolutely the quality of the content in many different ways. Now, hopefully, we've talked about actually what is meant by quality content as well. There's a whole series of different aspects to that I think we've covered today. So, you know, hopefully people have picked up on that or can rerun it. And I think the other thing actually, which Naila, you mentioned earlier about, you know, look at what you've got. And are you getting best value from what you've got? And interestingly here, actually in Sharp, you know, we're looking at maybe conducting some research in terms of all the technology that businesses already have, but what value are they getting from it versus how much is either just sat on the shelf or actually they don't really understand how to get the best value from it. And again, really with that sort of note of where we are for the, you know, the next year or two, and it's fantastic that industry longer term is really positive, but we've got to get through, you know, the difficult periods that we're in now. So rather than feel you've got to go out and buy something else, actually get the value out of what you've got and then look to make additional investment because you've probably demonstrated that you can get the return.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I'll move on to Q&A. Thank you so much, both of you. Matt, I saw that you shared the LinkedIn statement, so thank you. You've done that one.
Yes.
This one's quite a long question, so I'll open this to both of you. This is from Mike. Can you answer this? My VP believes that SEO is all powerful because everyone shops and makes decisions online, i.e. if our website tells what they want to see, then job accomplished. And automation is just expensive and hard to work with. This is flawed thinking, but let's hear you articulate how to get my stodgy VP off this.
Well, I think we probably need the head of sales at Acton probably to jump in, and how would they overcome this this objection, I guess, from the VP? Look, is SEO important? Yes, absolutely, absolutely is. Please don't think that we're trying to say that it's not. I would say what is working. You know, how are you benchmarking yourself on what is successful? If you are as successful as you're ever going to be with your SEO activity, then brilliant. But I would challenge the VP to say, well, let me try. You know, if I've not tried, how on earth are we not going to know? If we produce some case studies, obviously, not sure, Mike, obviously on your products, your services, the solutions that you're selling, and so on. But I would say if you've got, and you know, let's just go back to case studies quickly and where that sits in the buyer journey. So in one aspect, you create a really great case study, which is top of funnel, because the marketing team are going to use it for the awareness, attention, consideration, and that will have an impact. That'll have a stickiness because it's a great story. But actually, further down the funnel, a salesperson uses it once it's already an MQL, but they use that as the, I guess, backup of thank you for talking to me, thank you for showing me your site, thank you for meeting me, whatever it is. Here's an example of someone who's having the problem you're having that we fixed. I don't think you can do that with SEO. I think you need that additional content and the way that content is fed to people. And, you know, we touched on it briefly earlier in this session, that there isn't just a queue of people sort of, you know, sitting at their computers typing in certain search words that you're going to do really well on and ready to click, okay, I want to buy. But I would say you could actually grow. You know, if you've got a growth strategy for sales next year, well, why not try a few blogs, an ebook, some case studies, do a few videos and so on. I get the pushback is going to be, well, how goodness me, how much is this going to cost us? But I'd kind of challenge to, what does the business want to achieve? If the business is just happy treading water and your role is just to sort of make sure the SEO is perfect, then that's fine. If that's what the company wants, I'm going to hedge my bets that then they're going to want to grow. They want to increase sales. And you in the marketing team are obviously going to have to help that. So it's a tough one, obviously not knowing the personalities behind this, but I would say, well, let's try it, you know, give it a go, see what works. And actually, can we have a real impact in capturing some new leads, some new customers and so on, you know?
Yeah, and I would add, and we've had a similar question, you know, am I going to see value from automation? It's going to take me ages to automate. And I think we get that a lot. Like I think the honest answer is going to depend on your own use case and your own instance. But think about automation as a way for you to be more streamlined. Like, you are going to spend more time focusing on the strategy, the bigger picture, but in the background, getting those laser sharp results on your day-to-day efforts. You're going to be generating and nurturing the right leads, taking them through the sales funnel, able to track who you're targeting, track the success of content, reduce churn, have those customer service touch points. So definitely worth looking into, and we can talk to you afterwards. Just have time for one more. I know we're at the top of the hour, but Jason, we have a question. I am a marketing team of one. How can I make the most of digital marketing without a team behind me? Which I think we all want to know the answer to before we leave for today.
Probably the first thing that sprang to mind actually was hard work. And probably comes that with passion. If you're passionate about something, you'll put the effort into it. But actually, yeah, you do need help as well. And I think, as we've discussed here, having some automation will make you a lot more productive and a lot more effective. So having that combination of the website, probably with your CRM, which should be supporting your salespeople anyway, and hopefully your sales organization already has a CRM in place, but then it's connecting all of that, which is with your marketing automation. So then actually you can really concentrate on marketing, rather than actually the technology itself, and it will make you a lot more productive. So I think that's one of the most important things, and I think we might have touched on it earlier as well. Start small, and just do and get your activity going, learn from that, and then you'll start to get results, which will encourage you, and it'll be good for the businesses as well, and maybe over time actually allow you to get some budget maybe from an agency to help you as well, because then you're not paying for fixed costs in your business, but actually you can actually then start to increase your marketing activity as and when you need it.
Great. I know at the top of the hour we're 2 minutes over, so I won't keep anybody waiting. But if there are kind of additional questions, just reach out. We can help you afterwards.
There's one here, Nyla, just very quickly. There's one from Rick that's just popped up.
Okay.
If people just bear with us, just to I'm
always
keen to cover the Q&A if we can. So understood the importance of marketing automation and quality content that resonates with targeted customer personas. What are your recommendations as how a marketer can deliver the content to newly targeted customers and be in compliant with GDPR and avoid an opt-out? So my response to that is, what about, and this all starts with strong content, whether it be a piece of insight, so a piece of knowledge that your business has that's going to be valuable to the target, or a customer story or a case study. But what about an approach on LinkedIn or on email where you've obviously warmed someone up, but basically you're saying to them, here's an example of something I think you're going to be valuable. We wrote a case study for a robot company and how it had really changed and improved productivity in a drinks filling factory, and they'd reduced forklift truck movements by 50%. Now, I think that's a great example of being able to go to other drinks filling businesses and maybe a portion of the food industry with similar line speeds and saying, look what we've done for this customer. We've reduced forklift truck movements by 50%. I know you've got to have that golden nugget headline, but the idea is that you're going with something so powerful, you've got that sort of wow factor moment. It's not just, we want to try and sell you translation services. We were talking about that earlier on before we started the webinar. Someone's trying to sell us translation services. They're just emailing me going, we'd like to offer you translation services. There's no reason for me to take any action at all. So I think manufacturers like to be challenged. And I'd like to think that all of your customers like to be challenged, as in, this is how we're making our customers better at the moment. Can we do the same for you? And I think that's how you remove that sort of opt-out risk, because you're not just saying, oh, I want to give you a sales pitch, please. We don't like that, as humans, do we? From a GDPR perspective, obviously, I'd always say make sure that you are adhering to all GDPR rules. Just remember, someone's got to grass you up to the ICO for it to get really hot under the collar. So just be sensible in what you're doing. Don't just always assume that you have the right to email people left, right, and centre, because obviously we all know that that's not the case. But don't break the rules when it comes to GDPR would be my advice on that, of course.
I'd just add to that as well, actually, is preference management as well, because the basic form of cookie management is you're in or you're out. But actually, if you can offer the visitor a more granular view or options around what type of content they are prepared to receive from you, then actually you're more likely to get the permission for the content that they're really, really interested in, rather than being forced to give permission to receive anything and everything from you. So that's another way of keeping that dialogue going.
Great. Any more before I close shop?
I think that is it. But yeah, look, feel free, to everyone attending, feel free to drop a message on LinkedIn to us, or, send your questions to Nyla and the team at Acton, and
We can share
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
details. So massive thank you to Matt and Jason. I've actually really enjoyed spending time with you today. That's all we have time for. We're slightly over, but thank you to everybody that attended and for all your questions. You've been a fantastic audience. Panelists, you create some really thoughtful insights and takeaways. So this will be available on demand, and I'll send the slides and the recording. So I'm sure a bunch of people will catch up later. But until next time, goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Good luck, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.